Hello, and welcome to my Southern Exposure. My name is Joseph Alvelo, your host, and I have some fabulous hosts lined up for later in the show that I will be introducing shortly. What I wanted to talk about with you briefly is what the point of my Southern Exposure is. It is a web-based show that is intended to shine light on things that a lot of us are thinking about. There's a lot of media and radio coverage going on right now, especially with COVID-19. And I felt like things were not being completely discussed to the end result. What I want to try to do is find out and figure out by communicating with some of the other people all across the United States, from local people and people that work for the government. We're going to be bringing up topics like homelessness, LGBTQ plus events or concerns, as well as elderly advocacy, in addition to entertainment, politics, and much more. So I want to thank you, the viewers at home, and those who will be watching this later at some point in time. Today is Sunday, May 24th, 2020, and I am broadcasting from my little home studio in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So that's basically what the show is about. And we've got a really great sponsor and a whole bunch of wonderful advertisers that we're going to be able to promote and hopefully help them be able to make some money during these difficult times. What I would like to do now is pass this microphone, quote unquote, over to Rajee Narinesingh, one of my very close friends who lives down here. Rajee,
Oh,
please take it
flattery is
away.
going to get you everywhere, honey. So I'm Rajee, trans activist, author, mystic, actress, reality TV personality. I'm a lot of things, but I'm here in South Florida, USA, Hollywood to be exact, coming to you from my very humble abode. And I'm hoping that, I'll be able to bring my perspective and understanding of the way things are going on in the world to this panel. And, I want to thank you, Joseph, for having and being open enough to have a transgender individual on the panel. I think I'm pretty intelligent sometimes. I can be a little bit of a dumb blonde, but today I'm a redhead. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to, seeing where this goes. I'm excited for you, Joseph. I think, your intentions of doing a show like this, absolutely wonderful. And, I feel that, because the intentions are good and that you really want to like get the information out there and cover things that maybe the media isn't necessarily covering, like what the mainstream media, I think is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I'm excited. And you'll learn more about me as we go along. Some of you all may recognize me from the whole botched black market injection thing. It went viral a few years back, my story, that is. And I appeared on about 35 different TV shows around the world. And that then led to reality TV and 3 seasons on the reality TV show Botched. So maybe you recognize me from that. But I have a lot more that comes with all of this, okay? So as the show goes along, I'll be open and share more about my life. And now I'd like to throw the microphone over to Nick.
Hi, everyone. Reporting to you live from sunny Los Angeles, where it's 4 p.m., or around 4:15 p.m., I should say. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, which is actually kind of how Joseph and I got connected, because he used to work with my mother in a newsroom, which I sort of followed in her footsteps. I was a journalism kid, and that took me from the world of reporting into public relations. I do PR for an agency called Motormouth Media, and we represent a bunch of artists like Flying Lotus, Thundercat, Animal Collective, PC Music, and it's a really great job. It's very much in line with my passions for both media and music. I grew up playing music and performing in choirs, performing in bands and whatnot. And being in Los Angeles, being that it is such a entertainment capital of the world, has been fantastic for me. I do a lot of show reviews in addition to my work in music PR, and I do some music journalism freelancing on the side as well. And then as part of Joseph's new outlet, I was just very excited to hear that he wanted to center it around LGBTQ voices, because those voices need to be heard, especially at a time right now where people who do identify as LGBTQ tend to be at a disadvantage in many different ways, whether it happens to be with health or shelter, finances. So I think that it is important that people's voices in those communities are highlighted, because that's important. And I'm hoping, in addition to not only being able to be a part of this conversation, I hope to learn a lot more from this, because as has been brought up when we were discussing this segment beforehand, is that there's a lot of stuff in the mainstream media that either isn't being covered, or it's just being falsely reported. I mean, we know that there's a lot of bias in many different types of media outlets out there, and I know that a lot of people, even myself included, as someone who is a journalist and who has studied media, it's hard to figure out what is true, what is false out there, what's reliable, what's unreliable. So I'm hoping to expand my own horizons and expand my own knowledge of what's going on, in addition to talking about my own experiences. But I think I have said enough on my piece, and I believe I am going to be tossing this back over to Joseph now. So take it away, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Mick. And thank you so much, Rajee. I really greatly appreciate the toss and also the introduction. What I want to do is bring up to both of you, before we take our first commercial break, is what the topic is. The topic is COVID. So I sent some information to both of you before, and what I would like to do after we get back from this first commercial break is to talk about what COVID is, what it's done to you, how it's affected your life, what you think about it. I think it's going to probably take a little while for us all to talk about it, and it can be a free-for-all when we get back. But basically, that's what I wanted to just state at this point. And at the end of this first commercial break, you will get a little bit of a teaser about what the very first sponsor is for the very first segment. So I don't want to give too much away. So it's time for me to read some copy at this point. So hopefully everyone will like what I have to say. All right, here it goes. Minuteman Press, Wilton Manors, is where they design, print, and promote you. It's their business to help business grow. They're there for all of your printing needs. Make sure to call 954-731-5300. They're located in Fort Lauderdale, just south of Wilton Drive. Part of the reason why I look so good today is that I had someone come over and cut our hair, myself and my partner. He's a little shy, he's not on camera right now, but Kat Rio is the one who did it. Kat provides a custom haircut that will definitely suit your individual personality. You'll never have to worry about looking like anyone else ever again. Stand out from the rest. Kat Rio will come to you 7 days a week if you live in the Fort Lauderdale or Wilton Manors area. You got to text her. Her number's simple and it's easy to remember. It's 954-984-4040. Or you could just go to her website. It's kind of a little tricky, so I'm going to have to say it twice because it's twice as nice. It's catriocuts.com. So that's cat, like K-A-T, Rio, and then cuts, Kuts.com. One thing that we just did last week is we got some Asian food and some sushi hadn't been for a while, about 30 or 60 days. If you're looking for good food to pick up easily in Fort Lauderdale, near Wilton Manors, you have to check out one of my favorite places that I go to, the Asian Corner Thai Sushi. It's easy to find, easy to pick up food with minimal contact. They have zero contact options available. They're located at 1100 Northeast 4th Avenue. Their phone number is 954 900 5290. But if you visit their website, the Asian Corner Thai Sushi.com, you can easily order online. They're open for curbside pickup Wednesdays through Sunday, special hours with everything that's going on from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's way beyond good. So basically, that's the first round. What I want to try to do first here, Mick and Rajee, is bring up the topic again about COVID, how it's affecting you, what you think's going to happen, what you miss, what's the thing that you miss the most, and we can take it from there, and then you can pass it along to Mick after that. Raj, are you still there?
I am here. A little bit of a technical difficulty, but I'm here, honey. So, okay. You know, this whole COVID-19 thing, I tell you, first of all, I have to say, it's something how in a matter of a few months, the entire world can be affected on so many different levels. And for me, you know, I'm the type of person that I've always tried to like look at things from the brighter side, like, you know, look at the glass half full instead of half empty, that sort of thing. From young, I've been that way. And so it's the same thing with this COVID. Even though I've been affected and, you know, being home a lot more than I would normally be home, when I go out into the streets to do like my errands, you really can feel that there is, and this phrase is being used a lot, there is really like a new normal. And the energy to me has been pretty thick. I'm a very empathic person and I pick up on energy. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. I have to really protect myself because if I go out and I'm around a lot of, like, let's say negative energy, when I get home, I'm exhausted. I feel really, really drained. And, you know, if it happens to be positive, it's like, okay, I'm exhilarated, you know? But so in that sense, I had to really like make an effort to not go into a depression because, you know, when I would go out and you just feel like the energy of people and how this is affecting them and just like even just simple covering your face. I mean, I'm a girl that I have my hot flashes from time to time, and I swear that damn mask. Oh my God, I don't go anywhere without my fan now. But I know that it's necessary. You know, it's necessary, especially if we are respectful of others, because, you know, supposedly the mask is to protect other people in case, you know, you are infected. So anyway, then I started to look at like the positive aspects. You know, supposedly on the news, they've been reporting that the globe, the earth, the planet is healing itself. You know, less pollution because people were staying home and the waters are clearer and nicer. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, you know, people stay home and then the pollution drops and the planet is healing itself. Unfortunately, all these people died, you know, from COVID and or have been sick. But, you know, that's an irony to me how that is. And, you know, there's a saying, from evil cometh good. So maybe we can look at it that way. And then the other interesting thing that I saw was that they said the crime rate had gone down. And I thought that was a pretty positive thing. Although they did say that domestic violence went up. I guess people were stuck at home getting on each other's nerves. But yeah, so I found that that was pretty positive, that the crime rate had gone down. So then I thought to myself, okay, I'm stuck at home. I'm at home a lot more. Hey, maybe I should take, opportunity to do some things. I cleaned out a closet that I've been wanting to clean out for a really long time. I went through a pile of paper that I've been wanting to sort through. I was trying to be productive, and do those sort of things. And I'll tell you, it's, to me, as long as you have like internet and TV, being stuck home in 2020 is a lot better than being stuck home in 1985 or 1918. I mean, there's so much to do at home. You can go on the computer, all the things online. We have the cable with all the channels, Hulu, Netflix. I mean, there's a lot to do. Hey, I grew up when there was only 5 channels, the 3 main channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, and then the 2 extra ones that came out, I think, in the 70s. So, there's a lot to do. What I would say how I've been affected. And don't forget taking that nap in the afternoon that you can't normally take. Getting that extra rest that your body's been wanting to get for a long time. So stuff like that. I've been cooking a lot more. I used to do, I've always cooked, but I did a lot of like takeout. And I find myself, cooking a lot more now. So what I was about to say is, one of the things that I've been doing lately, and I think it has a lot to do with COVID-19 and the way the world has been, is I've been thinking a lot about my existence and the existence of us here on the planet, and like what life's all about, the meaning of life and where we came from and where we're going. And I've been very contemplative about that. I watched a really good YouTube video, and it's The Journey of Mankind, a Genetic Odyssey. Oh my God, it was fabulous. I would recommend anyone watch it. So yeah, so a lot of things going on. I think overall, I've taken this time to grow and evolve. And when you look at the history of the world, this is not the first time, it's probably the first time for us in our lives. Let's not forget HIV and AIDS. Oh my God. In the 80s, I mean, they were dropping like flies. And for the LGBTQ community, that was like really hard for us, because it hit our community first and it hit us hard. So yeah, maybe we have lived a little through it, but I'm just saying, like, on the scope of a global pandemic, I think, this is probably new for all of us, but it's not new to the planet. It's not new to the world. So on that note, I think I've run my mouth enough. I'm going to toss it over to Nick.
All right. So how COVID has affected me. I mean, so far I have, like, on a personal level, I have thankfully only really known one friend who's contracted it, and from what I can tell, it's a friend of a friend. And from what I can tell, they've healed well, but I know that it knocked them on their ass. And they are, like, it was someone around my age, and she was remarking how she tried to cut a sweet potato and it winded her. So that, like, it is very, very eye-opening to hear that there are people my age who are contracting this disease, and it's like, it might not be killing them, but it is a huge struggle to beat this disease, even if you're young and you're healthy. And it does make you think about people who might not have the means to take care of themselves. Like, if you happen to be a service or essential worker and you contract this and you're like you might not have enough time for sick leave, or you have bills to pay, or you're at home with a bunch of other people who are now at risk because you're sick, which you can't really help because you can't go anywhere. But so it has gotten me thinking a lot about just the ways in which we kind of haven't been prepared for something like this, even though, as Rajee pointed out, this type of thing has happened before. If any, I mean, the last time it happened on such a large scale was about 100 years ago, but we're seeing a lot of the same parallels where it kind of happened in waves and some people didn't take the proper precautions or thought it was a hoax or thought that we had already beaten it back, and then the secondary wave hits. And there's been talks about how China is now seeing a secondary wave along with South Korea. And so then you start wondering about if that type of second wave is going to hit us, which I unfortunately think it will. So on a mental note, this has been, I'm not gonna lie, very difficult to deal with because you're constantly bombarded by it wherever you go, whether you're on an entertainment website, whether you're checking up on the news, if you're looking at like friends' social media. I mean, you really can't escape it. So this is the new normal where you're constantly reminded that you're living in a pandemic, in addition to all of the other things that are currently wrong with the world. So that has definitely been difficult, and something that I've just had to learn to kind of grapple with for a while. And then I guess going off of that, just on a local level here in Los Angeles, we've noticed things like, obviously traffic has been way down, and traffic has always been an issue in LA. And the fact that it has gone down has, I mean, says a lot about what is going on right now. Like, this is very serious. It's making people not want to leave their homes. However, we've seen that traffic is starting to pick up a little bit more, which means that people are going out, and it seems like they are not social distancing as much as maybe they should be. So that does give me a little bit of pause. And also going back to a point that Rajee had mentioned before, with all of the traffic that had been down, the smog levels had been down here in LA, so the air had been a lot clearer. So I guess that is one of the few things that has been good that has come out of this, because I mean, the air is clearer, and I can see just from looking out my window, because I have a view of downtown, you can usually see it a lot more clearly than you would in typical circumstances. And then, I mean, in addition to that, I guess the personal positives, and just looking at the glass half full, you do have a lot more free time at home. You have a lot more time I've had a lot more time to connect with people whom I haven't spoken with in a while. Our family had been doing a lot of Zoom calls like this. So there are opportunities to make the most of this time. And now that, speaking of time, I'm going to toss my time over to Joseph, because we've both been kind of talking about our own experiences, and I think it's time for us all to start a discussion.
Thank you so much, Mick, and thank you so much, Rajee. I'm a real fact-based person, so I'm going to go over some numbers and postulate something for you guys to think about. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to introduce our first sponsor. And it's going to be an upbeat kind of segment to learn about fun and travel all in one that directly affects all of us who are related. But what I first want to do is go over some numbers with you. The numbers, just so everyone knows, and because it's recorded, it's good to keep it for a chronicle. There are 1,613,680 confirmed cases of coronavirus as of this morning. There have been so far 96,535 deaths. The recovered number, which is the good side to look at, are 361,239. But everyone can do the math on their own, just with the basic United States numbers. 361 and 96 is nowhere near 1.6 million. There's a lot of information that is not being discussed yet. So what I did, because of all of us and where we're located at, I focused first on Florida, because that's where 3 of us live that are on this call. So according to Florida Health COVID-19.gov from this morning, Florida has 50,127 confirmed cases, 2,233 deaths, and only 756,068 people have been tested. Keep in mind that there are 21.48 million people that live in Florida. It's going to take a second for that to sink in, maybe, and maybe we can look at it later. But I did some additional math because that's where I want to try to focus on what they're not telling us. So based off of the numbers, if it's approximately 3,000 people who die per 1 million people who live in Florida, 3,000 times 21 is 63,000 deaths total. It's a harsh number to go over, but that's something that's necessary. So we're only sitting at 3,000 at this point, and that's only with the testing that's been done. All I'm suggesting is that more testing needs to be done. The numbers are very similar for Ohio, Mick and Laura, and actually for Ohio, it's a little bit worse. So I just want to mention to both of you to think about that. If in the previous 3 months that we've gone through with this mess, and we take that same data and transpose it to the actual total amount of the population, like it should be done, then this virus is much more serious. And for you out there in California, it's not good either. So we're talking about the death toll according to my math, and I'm not a scientist or an epidemiologist, but I'm just using numbers that are given out. For you, I don't know if you have the numbers from COVID-19ca.gov. It's 90,631 confirmed cases, 3,708 deaths. But they've been doing a lot better with the testing. 1,515,306 people have been tested. So you guys are, from my perspective, the only ones who are doing things correctly. And but we're still talking about a lot more deaths that are not quite realized, which is frightening. And for New York City, of course, there's missing data, which is basically the hot point. And that's part of what I'm going to try to focus on later. But I would like to get your perspective, Rajee, after we talk with something that's more upbeat, as well as Mick. You can confirm some data while Alan talks with us about how we're going to travel and have fun. We have to look at some positive things, but I just wanted to drop some numbers that are based off of each individual state that we all live in, and we know people that we love and care about. And there's going to be more states that are added as the show progresses. And I'm going to get some people to back up those numbers as well, because I'm not an epidemiologist or a government employee, but I do know that math is pliable, and you can make it look any way that you want. So anyways, so that's that. What I would like to do now is introduce Alan Beck. He's going to try to help us have fun during this whole situation and after we pass through it in a fabulous way, because that's the way that it should be. It should be fabulous. But I do want to, put it out there that I think that our population needs to maybe pay closer attention than other people are. And Alan Beck and his crew have been working behind the clock in the lockdown since we've been shut down for a while. So Alan Beck, I want to invite you and welcome you to the show and introduce you to Rajee Narinesingh as well as Mick. They'll have questions for you also. And I'm going to shut up and I'm going to toss the mic over to you, Alan Beck, so you can take over.
Thank you so much, Joseph. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And although we're only fairly new friends, I've come to like you, and I love what you're doing on your show and look forward to being a part of it. My company is Fun Travel Guides, and we make maps and guides that serve the LBGT community, not only here in the United States, but also in Canada, and most recently in Latin America, both Costa Rica and in the country of Colombia. This is a rather expanding venture. I was publisher of Fun Maps for many years. If you're a member of the LBGT community, more than likely you've used one or more of these for cities all across the United States, Canada, and at one time in Europe as well. In the senior years of my life, but I realized as a young man when I was in high school and in college that I was destined to be a publisher. Nick, like you, I was involved in journalism. I was the editor of the high school newspaper and business manager of the yearbook called the Columbia. I went to Columbia High School in South Orange and Maplewood, New Jersey, lived in South Orange. It was a joint school system of the two communities, South Orange and Maplewood. The high school was called Columbia High School. I went on to Lehigh University and assumed those similar roles of business manager and yearbook, of the yearbook and advertising director of the Brown and White, which was the newspaper for Lehigh. And then I went into the United States Army and served proudly in the United States Army down in Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Dix, New Jersey. And thank goodness I never saw any time overseas, and enjoyed my time in both active duty and the reserves as a lieutenant in the United States Army. Being in my dad's business for a few years, which was selling automotive fabrics, I honed my skills as a salesperson, and then realized that I didn't want to travel the country so much selling automotive fabrics and going to trim shops. And I also read the future. I read the future that people weren't always going to be putting on tops and upholstery in the aftermarket, in replacement market. Cars were being made better and better, and no longer were they putting on the clear plastic seat covers and convertible tops, carpeting, headlining, trunk lining. And I told my dad that I wanted to do something that would use my brain power more. And interestingly enough, I went back to what I knew best, which was selling advertising space and eventually getting into the full gamut of publishing. And I chose maps as my focus, as maps are copyrighted products. And most everybody can make a telephone and address book, which was what I started in advertising space sales doing, selling little advertisements on a notched telephone book and a scratch pad with fly sheets that had advertising on them. The cover went to a bank, and the back cover usually went to a funeral home or a realtor. And the entire project, which I could do roughly put together in a week for a local community, brought in about $10,000. And for me, it was like shooting ducks in a peanut gallery. And I took those skills, bought out the company, turned it into a map-making company called Columbia Marketing Corporation. I was 27 years old when I started, and we're still existing 55 years later. Don't do the math so quickly. I was born before World War II, and I experienced the war and some of the rationing that went on at that time, and stayed at home a lot, just like we're staying home a lot at this point in my life. Drove less, gas was rationed, food was rationed, a lot of other things were on the ration list as well. My dad served in the military, and so did I, and I've enjoyed a good run, and I'm still going strong, as Joseph can attest. So we realize that publishing is not necessarily in a printed form the only way to do things these days. And what we've been busy doing is developing a new website called funtravelguides.info. And funtravelguides.info is the building site which you could go to right now. By the time this broadcast is being aired, you'll go to funtravelguides.com. In about by 1 week from today, it'll be up and running live. Fun Travel Guides can give you your armchair travel. If you want to visit Vancouver, Canada, or Montreal, you can do so just by going to a website and checking out a host of opportunities. You want to go to Los Angeles to visit Mick, check out our Los Angeles area of our website. Or you want to go down to Miami to see the voluptuous and lovely Renee, is it? Renee.
Rajee.
Rajee.
Yeah,
Rajee.
South Florida.
I'm gonna have to interject for a second because I've been patient. I don't know if any of you are getting my text messages. So Alan and Rajee, I have to say it to both of you. It's Mick, like Mickey Mouse. Mick. Did you hear me?
Mick.
Mick, like Mickey Mouse. Mick,
Yeah.
like Mickey Mouse.
Got it.
Oh,
Mick.
oh my God. Okay.
Mick, like Mickey Mouse. So, I mean, I just have to school both of you because it says his name on that little screen. So this is actually kind of quite funny, but I'm going to shut up now. So I'll shut my microphone back off and I'm going to toss the microphone back down to Alan. Once you're done.
I like that better, Mick.
Now I see Mick. Mick, when I come to California, I will visit Mick, not Nick. I've got Nick every day in my house. He's my husband. So you can do armchair traveling at this point by checking into funtravelguides.com. And if you check in the next few days, go to funtravelguides.info to see what we're doing. And you'll see 35 plus areas around the United States, Canada, and Costa Rica, and Colombia, the country, that you can check out. I'm thrilled to be here and invite you to check out Fun Travel Guides and have fun and enjoy yourself at home or be out checking out the different venues and see the world. There's also an app that we have developed called fun travel guides. Check that out by getting a free download through the App Store or Google Play. I think I've used up my time. If not, it looks like I have. So back to you, Joseph.
All right, thank you so much, Alan Beck. I want to first of all say thank you as our very first sponsor, and wish you well. And this is just for the viewers at home. They might be watching it next week or the week after or next month or the year after, God only knows. So this video will be uploaded within about an hour or so on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everything else. They don't have to wait till next week. But what I want to do is see if Rajee has any questions first, based off of what she just heard from Alan, or Mick, like Mickey Mouse. So we might have to, I might have to send you some Mickey Mouse ears, because
It's really like,
if you're
really
gonna
like
be
Mick Jagger.
right, exactly, like Mick Jagger. Oh, that's even better. So
Mick Jagger. Yeah,
we
there you
can.
go.
We're gonna have to do something so that they can see it's Mick instead of the other word. I won't even say it because it's not your name. But I want to thank you, Alan Beck, for participating in the call. And also, I greatly appreciate that you're part of the show. And I think actually, in this next ad segment, I have some copy to read for you, as well as a couple of other companies that are local. So, but you're the big guy on the block. You're the big man on campus, because you got this global magazine and everything else and all these contacts. So I know over the next 12 weeks, we're going to have a lot of fun together. So I want to thank you, Alan.
May I tell one last quick story?
Absolutely.
Part of my routine in sales was to visit Fire Island in the late spring and do the selling of the advertisers who would be aboard both our Cherry Grove and Pines sections. And between Cherry Grove, correct, there you go, thank you. Between Cherry Grove and the Pines is a area called the Dunes, or some other people call it the Meat Rack. A lot of scurrilous things go on there that we won't talk about. However, when I was finished doing my sales in Cherry Grove, I would take my briefcase and my box of maps, and one box of maps, and walk it over to the Pines. So one day I was doing that, and I'm right in the middle of the dunes and the barrens, and these three young men, kind of scantily clad, came by, and they kind of stopped and looked at me and said, "Look at that. There's fun maps. They're everywhere."
Well, you know what? I think that's the perfect end to your very first sponsored segment. Fun Maps is everywhere. And if you want to have fun, you need to
use the
look for
fun
it.
travel guide.
You got to look for it. All right. Thank you so much, Alan. Don't forget to mute your mic just in case you drop something while you're watching the rest of the show. So I'm going to toss it over to Rajee first. And then after you're done, I believe Mick will be ready if he has any questions. But if you have any questions for Alan, just let him know, and then he'll turn his microphone back on.
Yeah. So, well, I just want to say thank you for sharing, some of your life journey with us. I tell you, you have a wonderful journey to share. So thank you for that. I want to make sure that I understand correctly. Fun Maps, did that cater to the LGBTQ community?
Yes, it did.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear about that, because this is what struck me when you were speaking about fun maps?
30 years
I want to
mapping,
know. Yeah,
30 years mapping
30.
the gay and lesbian community.
That is powerful, because I can't help to think about the days before internet and how important something like that would have been to an LGBTQ person back in those days. I mean, now with the internet, I think it's great what you're doing, because you're going with the flow of technology, and I'm sure you're going to touch so many people. But I just cannot help to think about how important that was for a gay man back in the 80s, when he was traveling somewhere and needed some guidance. I mean, I remember the days when the gay clubs, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I remember the days when the gay clubs were very inconspicuous. I mean, it would be like one door down a back street with maybe a number on it, and that sort of thing. And in our community back then, it was a lot of word of mouth. So that's just so powerful to think that you probably helped so many people down, during those times. I just can't even imagine that last story that you shared about the 3 hot guys. That says a lot. That says so much. My goodness, this is fun maps is everywhere. So that shows the level of or the ripple effect that you had with fun maps. Thank you so much for what you've done for our community. Thank you so much.
And I assure you you were probably at a bar on Juniper Street.
Ooh!
And Woody's?
Woody's, yes, Woody's. Oh my goodness. I remember Woody's. That was just phenomenal. Wow. And a funny story about Woody's. I didn't even know this until like a couple years ago, when my mom came down to visit me. And we were just talking, and my dad has already passed away, but we were talking, and she says, one time your dad and I, we went down to Center City, and we were out, and basically afterwards your dad said, why don't we stop somewhere and get a drink? And they saw this club, Woody's, and he said, well, let's go in here. And my mom says that they walked in, and they sat down, and then my dad was like looking around, and my mom's like, wait a minute, something's like a little different here. And, and then my mom realized, she whispered to my dad, she said, I think this is a gay bar. But it's so funny, and then look, they had transgender me, so there you go.
Rajee, I've got a question for you. Rajee, are you there?
I'm trying. I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Okay, I'm here.
I'm just asking you, Rajee, can you do the official mic toss from you to the mouse that's in the house, or the Jagger, depending on how you want to look at it?
I'm tossing the mic to Mick.
That's me. I first want to reiterate what Rajee was saying before Alan. I think that it's really, really cool, the things that you've done and the things that you've managed to accomplish, especially at a time where like gay people really just weren't seen, they weren't represented in the public eye, and really everything was known and discovered through word of mouth, and if you were lucky enough to even have that support system in place. So I'm sure you have a very fascinating story to tell that should probably be written down as well. I'm sure you can probably fill an entire book with stories, especially because you've traveled. A lot of what you've done has also coincided with traveling. And if there's anything that warrants a story, it's a vacation, because stuff always happens when you're in a new place. And I guess my question for you is, how has COVID, I'd like to kind of bring it back onto topic, how has COVID impacted your business right now? I mean, obviously people aren't really traveling as much, but have you noticed that people are maybe just postponing trips? Are they canceling? Or are some people still adamant about traveling right now?
Mick, we don't really, we aren't involved in booking travel, except that our advertisers might have their website directly through a link. They get the bookings. So
Okay.
if they're already up, they're going to be getting whatever bookings they're going to be getting. My sense from talking to bars, restaurants, hoteliers, airlines, cruise ship people, is people aren't booking travel right now. They may be booking it for a time in the future. I just, for instance, signed up for a cruise that I can take in the next 6 years. Literally.
Oh, wow.
So that was my way of booking at an inexpensive rate and doing what I love to do. Regarding writing a book, you got it. I've started, and it's starting to flow. And if you would like to help me on that journey, I think I'd be very pleased. Mick.
Well, I'm definitely down to check it out. I'm sure the stories are great.
Well, and to just go back to Rajee for a minute, I've been to Philadelphia a lot, and also to Washington, D.C. And a man was introduced to me who was second in command of the SBA. And his name is Eugene Cornelius. Eugene was introduced to me by Justin Nelson, the co-founder of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And when he met me and he heard my name for the first time and that I was publisher of Fun Maps, he said, "You're a publisher of Fun Maps? You're a publisher of Fun Maps? You're a publisher of Fun Maps?" And he started jumping up and down, and he didn't stop for about literally a minute. When he finally calmed down, he said, "I owe you a debt of gratitude. I happen to be a Black man, and I use your maps a lot when I travel, and they've literally saved my life. I was on my way back to my hotel, which was a gay-friendly hotel, and there were some roughnecks who were chasing me. And because I had stayed in the hotel, used your map to go where I wanted to go, and was able to get back quickly, I am alive today." It was a very powerful story, and I remember it always. And it was an eye-opener for me of how useful our maps were and our new maps are today. I've produced over 40 million fun maps, and with a readership of 2.75, and that gives you an idea of, it's well over 100 million people who have used our maps. So thank you all.
All right. Thank you very much, Alan Beck. I greatly appreciate that. And Mick out in Los Angeles, California, I want to also thank you for a great question because it's definitely a topic that a lot of people that are sitting at home right now probably were thinking, and no one has had the opportunity yet to ask that question, and we're all thinking, and that's actually the whole part, I should say, part of my Southern Exposure, the purpose behind it. What I want to do now is give Mick and Rajee a little bit of a break, and also talk about some local companies, and also the guy down there in the corner who was just on for the last, I don't know, a little while. Let's just say a little while. So first thing first, if you're looking to travel in the Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, and Middle River Terrace area, or Oakland Park, there's a great company to use. Instead of using the big boys out there and you never know who's going to be your driver, you can have an assigned driver to you. Weego LLC is the company. It's Weego LLC.app. You can pre-plan your transportation needs and make your life a lot easier. If you need a ride to go to or from work, if you need someone to do your grocery shopping, or hey, let's say you don't even want to do your laundry, they'll pick it up, wash it, dry it, fold it, and bring it right back to you for cheaper than what you spend going to the big high-priced laundromats that are out there. No touch, minimal contact options are available. Drivers, or delivery people, I should say as well, will be wearing face masks and shields and sanitizing the vehicle if you are in the vehicle after each customer transport. Visit WeegoLLC.app to learn more. Plan 24 hours in advance because services are subject to availability. I apologize. One of my co-hosts from another show just popped on. I'm just going to say hello to you, Carlita, but I'm right in the middle of a little advertising segment. So I got to tell you personally about La Madame Supermarket. It's perfect if you are looking for a great deal on produce, meats, or everyday grocery items. They're a great option if you live right in the Fort Lauderdale area near Middle River Terrace. My partner and I go there all the time. We go there 2 or 3 times a week with my mask, face shield on. But we have to go there to get all of the items that are necessary because we drink, or I should say make, healthy drinks every day with our juice extractor. From ginger, raw ginger root, turmeric, great prices. Their address is 1548 Northeast 4th Avenue, right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Their phone number is 954-314-7489. I think you should check them out on your own first before you make a decision just because I'm telling you that it's a great place. But you would be helping support a locally owned small business if you went there on your next grocery store run. That's La Madame Supermarket. Full circle here is the Fun Travel Guides publishers of travel guides for LGBTQ plus travelers have been working hard during the COVID-19 lockdown. The new Fun Travel Guides will be coming out in print soon. In addition, a digital version, website, app, and social media rollouts are all in the works as well. Once you are ready to travel, I suggest that you pick up the Fun Travel Guides in person or online first. They have local and regional options for anyone in the community looking to travel anywhere and find everything. Visit funtravelguides.info. That's funtravelguides.info to learn more. I don't know if Rajee got back on the call yet or not, but I see, Mick, you got your microphone silenced. And if you want to resume part of the topic the question that I started off with before we kind of traversed into the fun part of travel and everything else, my question was, what do you think about some of those numbers that I mentioned earlier? And what do you think is going to happen? I know we want to look at things on a positive side, but I'm kind of curious to hear what you're going to say.
I mean, those numbers sound consistent with how things have been, and kind of what you would expect. I mean, I think what is difficult for people to understand about those numbers is that since if you think about the United States population is around a little over 300 million people, I think people have a hard time thinking, oh, like there's only thousands of people are being infected. Like, that's not that much. But I mean, if you think about, like, there's in LA County, like I think you had said that there was around, I don't remember how many thousand it is. And that's the thing, it fluctuates so much, but
yeah, I said yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't actually individualize LA County. I'm also having a little bit of technical difficulties on my side, pulling up Rajee. I hope that she's back there. But I don't know if you're having any luck with that, but I basically said that the confirmed cases in the entire state of California are 90,631. Deaths are close to 4,000.
Yes, and I'm also seeing that now, just because I wanted to pull up and see exactly what LA County is. So LA County accounts for almost half of those. There's 43,000 confirmed cases in the county as we speak. And if anything, I mean, those numbers should surprise people just because, I mean, my hometown where I'm from, just outside of Cleveland, our population is around 18,000 people. So if you think about numbers like that, that means that my a population twice the size of my hometown is infected. So if you think about it, if you start to think about it in more micro terms like that, you can kind of get, just more, I don't really know how to phrase this, I guess I would say, but just it humanizes it in a way where it reminds you that, oh, this is how many people are sick and this disease is traveling very fast. And then on top of that, these are just documented numbers. We don't know how many people have gotten sick and just think it's like a cold or the flu, or they don't have the means to go get themselves tested, or they're asymptomatic. So if anything, the one thing to also remember is that these numbers aren't necessarily correct because there's no way to accurately get a read on everything unless there is widespread comprehensive testing where medical professionals are testing everybody. Because until that happens, we're going to be in the dark. And yeah, I mean, numbers like that, they make me nervous just because, yeah, those are the numbers right now. And maybe some people think that they're going down is a sign that, oh, the virus is going away. And it's not going down because it's going away. It's going down because we've been social distancing and that's been working. And I think that people maybe just need to be reading the data as not just data, but as these are people's lives and people's lives who are going to be affected whether or not they pass away. I mean, if someone gets sick and they can't go into work and they can't pay their bills, that's a tragedy in and of itself that people aren't thinking about. So it is a difficult thing to think about, and I think it should give more people pause, knowing that there are numbers like that out there, and that the numbers aren't even if they're going down right now, they won't keep going down if we're breaking quarantine. So that is just, I think that that's something worth thinking about, and I think people just need to think more about this on like a human level. This isn't just a numbers game. These are people's lives.
I completely agree. I completely agree with you. I think that everyone is back on. Rajee, are you there?
I'm back. I'm really sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna use a term, and I don't know if it's considered crass or not if I say testicle difficulties, but some of the audience will appreciate that. Once your video comes back up, then I would love for you to discuss or talk about part of what you were hearing. I don't know what you heard, but basically Mick was discussing the fact of humanizing the numbers, because it's not just numbers for the COVID deaths, and there's a lot more going on as well.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Because when you're looking at numbers and you're looking at, like, you know, us as a human population on the planet, over 7 billion people, and then you're just looking at it as numbers, it just seems like a drop in the bucket. However, when you start to see the individual lives that are being affected, you know, people that have lost their lives and the families that have been affected, people that are fighting the virus, then for me, that's when it brings it home. It's like, oh my God, you know, these are lives that are being affected and impacted in a negative way from this virus. You know, the interesting thing, I was watching the news earlier, and, you know, a lot of states are opening back up. And so they were taking film footage from like some clubs and restaurants and like the beaches, and there were hardly anyone out there wearing masks. And there was no sort of social distancing. And what struck me was like, oh my God, is this virus like a light switch? Like you can turn it, like, you know, turn it on and then turn it off. And I don't think it is. So I'm going to be really interested to see how the next few weeks are going to pan out, if there's going to be spikes or not. Now, maybe if there isn't any spikes, then that'll be like a sign that, okay, we're getting to a better state. But, you know, they keep talking about this next spike that's going to be coming. And so I would say people, you know, they need to watch it and not let their guards down so fast. That's my opinion.
I completely agree with you. In reference to that regard, is that.
Well, now I want to say this. We can't just stay in our homes forever. There has to be an opening up process. But I think what's happening is people are putting the cart before the horse. It's like we're opening up and they're like, oh, the hell with the mask and the social distancing. I think that's something we have to ease into. So anyway, yeah.
I completely agree with you with that. My big concern is that, and it brings up another topic that we can continue with. We're just waiting for Mick to get back connected as well. Whatever happened, bumped you off, and then it bumped me off temporarily, but Mick was on. So we're all getting back on again. So, but it's kind of expected. There's a lot of people that are all on at the same time.
Hey, and let me tell you, technology is fabulous, but when it doesn't work, forget it. Okay.
Well, that is exactly the truth. But the good thing is that if you have people that know what they're doing, it's easy to make it work. I just wanted to bring up the fact of that I'm concerned that the powers that be, I don't know any other way to say it, that they didn't want the government being shut down any longer out of fear that there was not enough money in the unemployment accounts to pay people who already paid. That's my big concern. And as a person who owns a company and has worked for other people as well, now everyone's back on. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. I don't know what happened, but we're having some storms down here. My concern is that they pushed people back to work too early because they don't want to pay the unemployment checks. And the only way that they can do that officially is if there is no longer a shutdown. So they can deny claims for people that are eligible, and they held off a lot longer than I think is acceptable, or it just doesn't make sense to me in my head. Unemployment is taken out of every single person's paycheck. It's money that you pay every single paycheck if you work for a company. And the company matches that also as well. That is your money that's specifically set aside for you. Where did that money go? That's my question. And no one's asked that question yet. I don't think anyone has ever asked that question yet. And then the other part with that topic is, and this is bringing up some more for us to talk about. I mean, I think all of us could probably talk indefinitely, but once it's 9 o'clock, I think it's good because we've been really patient, or 9:10, because some technical difficulties before. But the other part that I'm thinking about also as well is that if a hospital is always supposed to be a safe place for you to go all the time, year round, virus or not, why were they all overwhelmed at the exact same time? Because the actual hospitalization numbers pale in comparison to people after they started doing the testing. I fear and feel as though the testing is being leaked out slowly to not panic people. And that's the reason why I brought up those numbers earlier. They're letting a little bit of numbers out here, a little bit of numbers out there, a little bit of numbers out there. And the fact is that no one has any knowledge about what the true numbers are. And I don't even think that the people who are telling us in positions of power in the mainstream media, for the most part, really even know the truth. But it'd be nice to hear it from someone that they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And you know, the other thing is, I think a lot more people are infected than really we know. And the thing about this virus is it's mysterious in the sense that some people get it and there's no symptoms. Okay. And that's the population of people, I think, that we don't have a gauge on, because there, you know, the testing is lacking, and therefore these people that are asymptomatic, that have it, that are walking around, wouldn't necessarily know unless they were tested. And, you know, we're getting contradictory messages because they're like, well, if you're sick, don't come to the hospital. Don't come to the hospital if you're sick. Stay home and call your doctor. And so it's almost like this, all these messages and like these different, I think people are also fearful too. You know, even with the tests, you know, how they have to stick the thing up your nose. I think there was some misinformation about that going around. I was hearing like, oh, it was making some people have nosebleeds and all of that. I mean, you know, I don't know, maybe it was, but what I'm saying is I think there's a lot of things that are playing into it. And that's the thing, that the people that have no symptoms, probably, I was talking with a friend, I said, when this whole thing is over, probably a lot of us will eventually get it. And, you know, but get it in the sense of it won't be like where we die from it. Because, you know, that's actually about herd immunity. So
that's actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I want to get Mick's input as well. But part of the numbers that I did we're talking about, like in California, based off of the recorded data, and doing and using that same data over the last 3 months. And then I just did the math, projecting over the next 3 more months later, talking about basically 3.9 million people walking around with it in the state of California. In Ohio, almost 1 million people. Down here, over 1 million people that have it, and they don't even know that they have it. And I think that it's kind of like the horse already left the stable. Once the horse already leaves the stable, it's too late to try to catch up to it. And that's what's been going on so far. I think what it should have, once that was recognized and understood, I think the testing should have started to focus on everybody, whoever wanted to have it done. If someone's already sick, it's already too late. That's 21 days too late, or 30 days too late, based off of some of what they were saying with the cruise lines. Some of the cruise lines were talking about that they still tested some things after the ships had been docked down here in Fort Lauderdale, and it was 30 days later, and they could still swab the COVID virus. Some of it's also talking about how dogs and cats can get it also as well. But I'm going to shut up because Mick has been very patient, and I can see him shaking his head up and down also as well. So I have a feeling he's going to follow up with that. And after he's done, then I have to take another little commercial break.
All good, all good. And going off of what we were talking about before, where it seems like information is just slowly being trickled out to us, I think that obviously does have a lot to do with the fact that most of us are going into this blind, even the experts, just because people weren't prepared for a pandemic, and we're still trying to figure out how exactly this virus works and why it seems to affect certain people way worse than others. And that obviously creates a lot of confusion and a lot of fear for a lot of people. There's also, I think that plays into how we have kind of, so far when it comes to lockdown in the United States, it's been very, for lack of a better term, unorganized, because no one quite has an answer on how long this is going to be. But I think that I do remember reading, it might have even just been like a tweet or something that went viral, but it was worded along the lines of, they're not telling you how long we're going to be in quarantine because they don't want people freaking out. Because the thing is people keep saying things like 2020 is a wrap, 2020 is done for, like there's not really going to be a summer, there's really not going to be a fall. I've kind of come to accept that, just because I'm like, you know what, with the way that things are and the fact that other countries that have done lockdowns even more stringent than ours are seeing cases rise up again, I think that for probably the remainder of the year, we're going to be in some sort of version of quarantine or lockdown, at the very least until there's a vaccine or some type of treatment that's seen as effective against this virus. But yeah, and I think for right now, the powers that be are trying to figure out how to relay all this information to people without having them panic.
I can understand that, Mick, completely. And while we're talking about being on lockdown, because I'm in the same boat with you, I think it's going to probably be not lockdown per se, but we're going to have to adjust to things and try to figure out and kind of be a little bit test monkeys. It sounds inappropriate to say it that way, but they're trying to see who's affected, who's not affected, what works, what doesn't work, and we're basically kind of all lab rats. But I do have to take a little commercial break, and I want to thank the audience at home who's watching, who's been patient enough. I don't know where you live. I don't know what your sexual orientation is, or what your religion is, or who you vote for. But I do know that while we are stuck at home, or basically bored for some people, everyone's looking for a good outlet. So I want to talk about the Rogue Radio Network. If you're looking for the best in live stream entertainment, I suggest that you tune into the Rogue Radio Network. Veteran Cleveland broadcaster Chuck Galletti and super producer Big Daddy Marty Allen, who is watching the show in stealth mode, broadcasts live news, sports, and entertainment every Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast Manager, iHeartMedia, LinkedIn, and Spotify. That's a little bit of a mouthful, but basically they got you covered. All the major streaming services. Marketing guru Bill Bender and salon owner Carlita Renee, who popped on the call earlier but disappeared, with me, round out the Furious Five, giving the best live streaming entertainment online. For all the details on their live shows and podcasts, just go to rogueradionetwork.com. The Rogue Radio Network has no rules and no restrictions. For everyone that's been on the call already or haven't been watching, this might be a little boring, but I have to talk again once about Weego LLC. It's a local option owned and operates here in Fort Lauderdale that services the Wilton Manors and Middle River Terrace, as well as Oakland Park areas as well. If you pre-plan your transportation needs, it'll make your life easier. If you need a ride to work, to or from work, if you need shopping done, if you need your laundry done, it's no touch, minimal contact options for most. Drivers or delivery people will be wearing face masks and shields and sanitizing after each customer leaves the vehicle. I suggest that you go to and visit, I should say, Weego LLC.app to learn more and plan 24 hours in advance because their services are subject to availability. And I can't talk enough. I got to tell you again, because I don't know if you heard it the first time, so I got to say it a second time. Llama Dam Supermarket. It's a locally owned supermarket right here in the Middle River Terrace, Fort Lauderdale area. My partner and I go there almost daily, but it's necessary because we make our healthy drinks with our juice extractor. Their address is 1548 Northeast 4th Avenue in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Their phone number is 954-314-7489. I suggest that you check them out and make up your own decisions about them, but I have a pretty good idea that you're going to love them just as much as I do if you live close by. You would also be supporting a locally owned small business. So the next time, instead of going to the big grocery store, I suggest you go and help the little one first. So we can't forget about Fun Travel Guides either. The publisher was on earlier. So they are the ones who help everyone in the LGBTQ travel safely. And during the lockdown, they've been very busy. The new Fun Travel Guides will be coming out in print soon. But in addition to that, a digital version, website, app, and social media rollouts are already planned in the works as well. Once you are ready to leave home or travel, I suggest that you pick up the travel guide or pull it up online. There are local and regional options for anyone in the community looking to travel anywhere and find everything that you need to. Go visit them. It's a good site, funtravelguides.info, and you can learn more. All right, so I don't know if Rajee, are you still there?
Yeah.
I want
here.
to toss over to you, or we can toss over to Mick, because I know he has something of importance that he would like to discuss. I asked for you also as well to think about a topic that means something to you that you could share with the viewers at home and also with us, so we can learn a little bit more about Rajee Narinesingh and what's important to you, because you're part of the Southern Exposure as well, just like Mick.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna let Mick go first, and then I'll go.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for tossing it over to me. And the topic that I wanted to discuss that is very, very local to Los Angeles is the homeless crisis that we've experienced out here in California. I have only lived in California for going on 6 years, so I acknowledge that I am a newcomer to the area, and there are still a lot of things that I will learn about the area and will learn for as long as I'm here. But one thing that I have noticed having been here, and something that friends will often remark on when they come to visit, is that there is a very, very, very prevalent homeless problem. And I should also acknowledge that I don't believe that it is their fault, nor do I consider homeless people to be at fault in this situation. The city should be doing more to help them out. The city has the proper budget and the funds and the resources that it could use towards helping these people, but it chooses not to. It chooses to spend obscene amounts of money on things like the LAPD, which receives almost, I want to say even more than half of the city's annual discretionary budget. And most recently, Mayor Eric Garcetti's budget had come out, and while there were cuts to many other agencies like across the board, the LAPD actually saw an increase in their funding of about $140 million, I want to say, which is interesting because, as Rajee noted, crime has been down, and in Southern California, specifically in Los Angeles, crime has been down by about 23%. So the idea that we need to give more money to police at the moment is kind of ridiculous to me. But going back to the homeless population out here, a lot of that money that was sent, that is being budgeted towards the LAPD, could be put towards the 58,000 homeless people who live in LA County. That could be allocated towards shelters. It could be allocated towards testing for them, providing them sanitation at the very least, because living on the street, you don't have access to sanitation, you don't have access to reliable shelter, and you're surrounded by people who either could infect you, or you might be infecting them if you don't know if you're sick. And I think that this is something that people really do need to pay more attention to, because especially as more and more people become unemployed, more people are not going to be able to pay their bills, and as a result of that might become homeless. And especially because there has been talks of measures to clear certain homeless encampments starting in the fall. And if that is going to be the case, where are these people going to go? Where are we going? How are we going to provide shelter to them? These are citizens who need our help, and the city just seems to want to really brush them under the rug. And they've done this for many, many years. And if they have their way, they will continue to do so. But at an unprecedented crisis like this, these are people who are almost the most vulnerable for it. And a lot of people who happen to be homeless are of the LGBTQ community, because they've been thrown out of their house. They've been fired from their jobs for unjust reasons by homophobic and transphobic employers. So I think that this is something that we really do need to address, because it's been brushed aside for far too long now.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful, Mick. I'll tell you, when I'm driving and I'm out and about and I see someone homeless, my heart goes out to them, because I can't even imagine not having a place to lay your head in peace, at night. And it's just, that's just one thing. All the issues that come with being homeless, but it's so nice that no matter how big your place is, even if it's an efficiency, that you're able to come and be in shelter and be able to have a place to lay your head and down and go to the bathroom and take a bath and stuff like that. The basic human needs that we all acquire or require, I should say. So, I want to piggyback on what you said, in the sense of, being a transgender person. We, for the longest, lived on the fringes of society. And things have gotten a little better in the last few years, but we still have a long way to go. Here in America, I've seen some progress with the transgender civil rights movement. But when you were talking about the homeless, I couldn't help to think about my sisters, my trans sisters and brothers, who have been homeless and haven't been able to really get the support and needs that they require because of them being trans. So, it's hard enough if you're homeless, but then add being transgender to it. I don't know about California, but here in South Florida, a lot of the shelters are not equipped for trans people. And, someone like me who is pre-op, I haven't had my bottom surgery, they would put me in with the guys, and so it becomes like a safety issue. There is, if I'm not mistaken, one shelter that has made accommodations now, but that was after a lot of ruckus, us making a lot of ruckus over it. So yeah, what lays on my heart really heavy is that I was having a conversation with a trans sister of mine a few weeks ago, and she was saying to me, girl, please stay safe, because if we get sick and go to the hospital, can you imagine how we're going to be treated? And I was like, oh my God, like you would think that, like as a human being, if you need a hospital, you could go and you would be taken care of. Now, maybe that will happen. However, because of the past history and the stories of how trans people have been treated at places like hospitals, the fear is there. The fear is there. And so I would like to, I would hope that anyone listening would, at least if you're not educated on transgender, and I'll tell you, surprisingly, and maybe not so surprisingly, the LGBT community, a lot of them haven't really, I would say, tapped into the trans issues of the transgender community. It's almost like there's like a we're in our own zone. And for the longest, I said we were like the bottom of the totem pole. But like I said, that has changed a little bit. I am seeing, like here in South Florida, different outreach organizations are really trying to be inclusive with transgender people now. But I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I've been around the block a number of times. And I remember in the days where there really wasn't a space for us. And I say all of that to say that I think about transgender people around the world in places that it's basically a matter of life and death on a daily basis because they're trans. At least we trans people, for the most part, can, maneuver a bit through society, and there's consequences for people that might hurt us, or even kill us, but I can't help to think of them. And then I'll say this and I'll close. In this country, because we're such a big country, what I'm finding is, as a transgender person, it all depends on where you're living in the country. I went up in January. I was a part of the first transgender group to go up to the Capitol in Tallahassee, Florida, and sit down and have conversations with some of the lawmakers. We made history. We were the first trans people to do that. And so, but and interestingly enough, I don't want to get political. Maybe we can do that on another show. But the lawmakers that met with us, they were all Democrats. No Republicans agreed to meet with us. So that was pretty telling. And I thought, even if you don't agree with or understand a population, if you're an elected official, we at least have the right to be heard, So anyway, on the way up, as we were going through the little towns, as we went up north in Florida, and we would get out at these rest stops, it struck me like, wow, a lot of our country is rural. See, I grew up in Philadelphia, which is the city. When I left home, I came down here to South Florida, another cosmopolitan city. And all my travel pretty much as an adult has been like out to LA, another very cosmopolitan city, up to New York, So for me, I kind of lost sight of, like, a lot of our country is very rural and country. And like, when I say country, I mean like also rural mentality. Even when I went up to the trans march in September, it was the first trans march on Washington. Going up the road on 95, like after when we got into Georgia and the Carolinas, you saw all the religious signs, come to Jesus. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, when you think of religion and how a lot of people in religion would scorn someone like me and condemn me to hell, it's just like, wow. And we've traveled safely. We didn't have any major issues, but you could just feel at some of the rest stops the tension, from other people, the locals that saw us, and like, this group of transgender women, and so that's something how this country is. It's pocketed, and what the travel that I've done, like the road trips that I've done, the one in September and the one in January, it made me realize how fortunate I am as a transgender person to live where I live. I don't think I would do too well in Alabama. I don't think I would do too well in Mississippi. So, anyway, I just want to say in closing that anyone that's listening, I would hope that even if you're ignorant about trans issues, there's no excuse today in the technological world that we live in. We carry computers in our hands. You can Google shit, okay? So if you don't understand, Google it. And that doesn't mean by trying to educate yourself that you're agreeing with us or you're embracing us wholeheartedly. But hey, we're fellow human beings too. Despite our differences, we're in this together with you all. So, my injustice, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, is a threat to your justice. If it can happen to me, it can happen to any of us. And so, that's why I would encourage people to educate yourself. And hey, we're a part of the LGBTQ community. We're a part of the community. So, if you hear someone saying something negative about trans people and you know that it's incorrect, you might want to say, hey, no, well, I read up on this and because the thing is to say nothing is kind of like co-signing. It's kind of like going along with the discrimination. Like, if you're sitting with a group of friends and a trans woman walks in and they all start laughing, and you're sitting there and you know that it's wrong what they're doing. I know you have to also, you don't want to get into fights and all that, but what I'm saying is you can find a way to nicely educate people and say, come on, guys, chill out. Because the thing is, you may not be the culprit of the injustice, but if you're not saying anything and you're being quiet about it, you're in a way consenting to it. So on that note, I'll close off on the trans issues. But anyway, thank you for letting me share.
No, and actually, to be honest with you, you brought up a really good point that ties into another thing that I was going to bring up. We're almost, I want you guys to think about what you want to talk about next week. I'm going to have a little commercial break in a second, but you brought up something that I think is a really unique thing that a lot of people don't think about. I know me, growing up in the rural area as a kid, I knew I was different and I never fit in and there were no options and I felt judged and mocked and made fun of all the time. And the interesting thing with this whole COVID-19 thing is that a lot of people in the United States have never felt what we feel every single day. And I'm trying to look at it in a positive way, but I think that's what they're having a problem with in their head. Like, they don't know what it's like to have to stay home out of fear. We do. We did it all the time. You did.
Yeah.
And the fear for me is I don't want to get sick. The fear for us, that's my fear now, but the fear for us back then was we had to go in the back door of a bar and there was a fake bar in the front and then the performers were in the back. They got whisked in and whisked out. And then people got beaten up, people got killed, all that kind of stuff, and the HIV thing, and there's a whole bunch of this stuff. And we have a unique perspective and understanding, I think, that's different from a lot of other people. And they're having a real problem with it. Like this idea that it's so hard to exercise at home. Like, why is it difficult? So instead, you're going to go to the porch of, the Congress and do push-ups in a parking lot to prove that you can do it because you're supposed to be able to do what you want because you're a citizen of the United States. We've been dealing with this crap for a long time. So for some of these people, it's hard for them to wrap their head around it. And I think that those of us who have been wrapping our heads around this our entire life, it's a lot easier, but it doesn't make it any less harsh, I think might be a good way to say it. It's harsh for everybody. But my concern, though, is that there is no data from the CDC. You can Google it yourself, talking about Google it yourself, pull up the CDC website, and then type in a search, what is the data for HIV? And you know what it pulls up, at least it was a week ago. I brought it up on the other show. No data available for people with HIV and AIDS. No data available. You can't tell me that it's not affecting people with HIV and AIDS. This COVID is affecting us. And I know that it is because I know people in the community, just probably like you do as well, locally, Rajee. Luckily, we haven't had that problem with this virus, but I know people and people of people and people of people. And then we've had some people pass that were more well-known locally from COVID, that went to parties or did this or did that. And then judgment came down the pike, which people frowned upon. And that was a whole other topic. But I do want to talk about, because I had it on my little piece of paper. We're almost done. I had it on my little piece of paper, the religion and politics. And I think if Mick wants to participate next week, which I think would be absolutely fabulous, but I don't want to pressure him into doing it. I think it would be great for the three of us, and I might have to add a fourth person to get someone else's perspective, because I think the three of us have a lot of similar beliefs. It might be good to have someone come along on this side with a different perspective, but be calm, cool, and collected. I do want to talk about religion, and I do want to talk about politics. I don't know if you have anything else to say, Mick, but I'm going to do a commercial break after you talk. And then at the very end, that gives you guys some time to think about maybe a topic that we can bring up separate from the two that I just brought up. And then we can all say goodbye to the viewers at home, and we can go to sleep. Over to you, Mick.
I guess just in regards to the topic that I brought up about the homeless population, I really just ask that people have a little bit more empathy for the homeless. Like, that's the very least that you can do. They're being hit harder by this than probably most other communities in our nation. And if anything, that's also just not the only issue that they're facing. Like, they're without shelter, they're without sanitation, many of them were without any loved ones and like any connections. So the least that you can do is at least don't view them as a nuisance. Don't call the police on them. Please do not call the police on them. That's the last thing that these people need, especially because the police will often bully them. They will arrest them and really just exacerbate the issue. And if you can, try to maybe pay more attention to like homeless orgs that are doing work in your areas, because these people do need our help. And it has been very, very easy for people to write off this population for many, many years because people view them as either lazy or as criminals, and that's very much just not the case. These are people who have been hit hard by the lot that life has thrown at them, and they deserve our help. They don't deserve our ridicule. They deserve our attention, especially at this time. That's my 2 cents. And also, I was going to say just one other thing to consider. Try to see if there are hotels in your area that are offering rooms that aren't being used right now to homeless people. Just because here in Los Angeles, in downtown alone, there are thousands of rooms, more rooms than there are homeless people on Skid Row that aren't being used right now. And to be honest, if those hotels know what's good for them, they're not going to be opening them up right now anytime soon, because people shouldn't really be traveling with this virus. So the very least that they can do is open these rooms up to people who very, very much need them.
I completely agree. And you brought up a couple of different topics that you're making my brain spin a little bit around. That's why I'm stuttering. But I would think that there might be some options for the hotels to get money, even if it's subsidized from the government or nonprofit organizations, to prepay for some of those hotel rooms. I believe that I can't remember where it was, another city, Las Vegas maybe it was, that I read something about, that they were putting people up in hotels. And clearly, the part that's really interesting to me, and I'm sure you will both agree, as well as some of the people at home, not all of them, because some are spoiled. I'm spoiled too, but in a different way. But we're all complaining, not me, but other people are complaining that they're stuck at home. For those people on the street, they wish they had a home. That would be the best thing for them to have happen in their life, is to not have to work, not have to worry about having a roof over their head, and talk about what is necessary. And a lot of people are really spoiled. Hello, Laura. And it's very frustrating for me when people are like, I really need a haircut. You don't need a haircut. You need food. I know your hair looks beautiful though, but the thing is, like, you don't need a haircut. You need a roof over your head. You need water. You need food, and you need shelter. Basically, roof over the head. I said it twice, but when some of these people are talking about, this has been so hard, this has been so difficult, life is so boring. Really, that person on the street corner wishes that they had a house, or they had a car, or they could sleep on someone's front porch. So I completely agree with you. I'm sick of all the whiny, crying stuff that's going on. I want to get back to work. They wish they had a job. And a lot of people don't have that as an option. A lot of people aren't as lucky as we are. And I agree with you. I can't agree with you anymore. And I'm so happy that you brought up the topic, Mick. And I'm happy that you also backed him up with it, Rajee, with the trans stuff as well. And I agree with you with that as well. I mean, I have a lot of trans friends, but I do notice that there is like a divide, even though we don't like labels in the LGBTQ plus. So that's LGBTQ plus. That's 5 different labels.
Yeah.
Why did we even have to create that? Because they wanted us to do it? We don't need that division. We should be uniting and not have no labels. If they want to use label, fine, but we don't need to use those labels. I don't care if you're black or white, if you're Catholic or you're Episcopalian, if you speak Spanish or English or whatever's going on. As long as you have a good heart, that's all that really matters. And I know God up above and Jesus, even though I'm gay, I know I've got a really good contract with Jesus and God. So I ain't got no problem with it. No one has any right to tell you that you're not beautiful just as you are, Rajee Narinesingh, or you, Mick, or you, Laura. That's my little synopsis with that. I have to just do these last 3 little mentions, and then that'll give you 2 a couple of minutes to think about what the topic is and who you want to say a special thanks to before we close out the show. So once again, if you do like the way this haircut looks, Kat provides a custom haircut that will suit your individual personality. You'll never have to worry about looking like everyone else. I mean, unless you want to get this haircut, but I might have to trademark it or something maybe if it looks that good. Stand out from the rest. Kat Rio will come to you 7 days a week. If you live in the Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors area, you got to text her 954-984-4040, or you can visit her website, katriocuts.com. That's K-A-T Rio, just like it sounds, Kuts, Kuts.com. Minuteman Press, the people who print off my business cards, people that I also deliver some of their products for as well. Minuteman Press here, right in Wilton Manors, is where they design, print, and promote you, just like they do me and everyone else in the neighborhood. It's their business to help your business grow. They're there for all of your printing needs. Make sure to call them, 954-731-5300. They're located right here in Fort Lauderdale, just south of Wilton Drive. And I have to give a special last ad for my buddy, Marty Allen. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this, to be honest with you, and also Laura as well. I got a lot of input from everybody, and I love the support from you, Mick, Rajee, Laura, and also Marty, and everyone else that are friends of mine. If it wasn't for this COVID thing, I wouldn't have slowed down and thought about things differently. So that's my blessing. But if you are looking for the best in live stream entertainment, separate from us, I should say, then tune into the Rogue Radio Network. Veteran Cleveland broadcaster Chuck Galletti and super producer Big Daddy Marty Allen broadcast live shows, sports and entertainment, every Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast Manager, iHeartMedia, LinkedIn, Spotify, and all the major streaming services. Marketing guru Bill Bender and salon owner Carlita Renee, who popped on the call earlier and disappeared, along with me, round out the Furious Five, giving you the best live streaming entertainment online. For all the details on their shows and podcasts, just go to rogueradionetwork.com. The Rogue Radio Network. No rules, no restrictions. I'm going to toss it to you, Rajee, for your salutations and goodbyes, and then pass it along to Mick.
Sure. Well, okay, so as far as the topic, I just want to say, I think politics and religion is enough for us. Like that'll take up a whole show, honestly. So I'm daring not to throw out any topic. I'm good with next week maybe talking a little bit about politics and religion. And actually, probably both topics would take, like, the politics alone would probably be one show, and the religion would be another show. I mean, because it's such a vast topic. So anyway, we'll see where this all goes. But I just wanted to say that, it was a pleasure to be a part of this show tonight, and thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to future shows. And hey, my thing is to give honor to the shoulders that I stand on, the people that came before me, that allow me to be the dynamic, spicy, transgender, multiracial woman of color that I am. So have a great week. Love, peace, and blessings. Mwah.
Nice.
Mick,
Thanks for
over
that,
to you.
Raj. Thanks for all that. And Joseph, thanks for putting this all together. It's been a pleasure, honestly, talking about this. And I know I said this before, but it's forcing me to be a little bit more aware of things that are going on and to be more diligent about checking the news. I know that it's hard to check the news right now, but I think, if anything, it is important for people to be aware of what's going on, not just for your own health, but for the health of your neighbors and your community. And it doesn't mean that you need to seek out the worst news out there or that you need to torture yourself with the news, but you should be aware of what the latest health guidelines are. You should be aware of what's going on in your community if someone is in need of help or if things are getting worse. So I think that this is really a time, I mean, you're at home, you have most of us hopefully have access to the internet and have access to the news. Use your news judgment and be smart about what you're consuming, but I think people should definitely be tuned in. And then as for next week's topics, I agree with Rajee. I think that we could make 2 episodes out of each topic. I think that, politics, everything is pretty much politics these days. So I think that that can definitely be a standalone topic in and of itself. And how I feel about the topic might be very different than the way that than the rest of us talk about the topic. I mean, I think a lot of our politics probably fall on the same spectrum. They're probably more left than most people. But I also find that, like, the political divisions in this country have stalled a lot of the progress that we would like to see. But so I think that that's a very interesting topic. And then, I mean, as well, religion, like, I grew up Catholic, I was confirmed, I did First Communion and stuff. And I think that that is also a very interesting topic because I don't know that I would necessarily consider myself Catholic now, but I definitely don't think that anyone has all the answers. And I don't think that one can just write it off as just that there is no higher power whatsoever. I just don't think that that necessarily makes any sense. And this just goes back into I don't have the answers. But I think that would be an interesting topic to touch upon, especially as mortality is something that people now have to confront in these times. I think that religion is a very interesting way of looking at that. And if anything, now that kind of makes me want to go look and see if there's been any studies on who's been practicing religion recently, if the people have seen that they've been praying more, or that they've been getting in touch with those roots that maybe they grew up with but haven't really paid much attention to. I think that that'd be a really interesting topic, and something that I don't think that a lot of people have touched upon, other than the fact that a lot of churches have refused to close right now, which I don't agree with that. I think that places should be safe and should not be encouraging large groups of people to gather together. But I think the topic of religion could be very, very fascinating, and something that we're not really talking about. That's just me.
I thank you for that. And then I also want to add that my last numbers showed that there were approximately 3,007 different religions on the planet. I don't know, I have to confirm that. But just because you think the way you do, Rajee thinks the way she does, Laura thinks the way she does, Marty thinks the way he does, Alan thinks the way he does, doesn't mean that that's the absolute truth. It's what you believe in. And I think that might be a good way to close the show, that the most that I take from all of this mess is that we have to believe in ourselves, we have to support each other, and we have to try to bridge the gap and educate and have fun, but also deal with the harsh numbers as well. So from my Southern Exposure first show, I hope you all enjoyed it at home. I hope it was worth recording. I hope that everything that's been recorded was good. I don't know. We're going to have to test and see. And please follow me, or I should say us, my Southern Exposure.site, just like it sounds. You're going to have to type it in because there's a lot of my Southern Exposures and Southern Exposures and Northern Exposures and everything else. There's a lot of cross-promotional stuff if you Google. So you have to type it in old-fashioned, my Southern Exposure.site. It'll pull it up. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everything's on there. So if you can possibly follow and like, I need to get 1,000 subscribers in order to be able to broadcast live. So I have a really good feeling that that won't take very long to happen. And then also as well, I'm sure Mick and Rajee and everyone else who's on the show today, we're all going to be doing wonderful things, and I have a really good feeling about stuff. So I want to say thank you to everybody. Special thank you to Rajee. Special thank you to Mick. Special thank you to Alan Beck also as well. Give a toss out to Laura. How's the traffic up there? It's an inside joke. How's the traffic?
There's no traffic. I'm going to mute myself. But I love you guys. Rajee, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Love, peace, and blessings.
Oh, that was just a little cameo. That's way back in the day. So anyways, thank you all for watching at home. I hope you found it entertaining, and we look forward to meeting with you next week around the same time, hopefully at the correct time without the delays. So thanks for watching, and may God help you through whatever your problems are, and we'll see you on the other side.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great week.
You too.